Hello and welcome to Archer Enemies, the Hawkeye reaction show from the Comic Crush. I am Paul. As always, I am joined by my very own bloodthirsty assassin. At least she always kills my sense of well-being and enjoyment. It's Liz. Evening, Liz.
Hello.
You would have seen us a few moments ago, hopefully just on the comic show. Now we're back in your faces and in your ears. Welcome to all the podcast listeners, by the way. Thank you for tuning in again. We're here to talk about the final episode of Hawkeye, the Disney Plus MCU show that we've all been loving and enjoying for the last 6 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. How long has it been?
5 weeks. It's been 5 weeks.
It's been 5 weeks. Feels so much longer, Liz. I wonder why. Probably because I end up doing things like this. Like going into this episode, we get the big reveal, of course, the Kingpin, which everyone has been waiting for. Now, going into this, did you feel, looking at that early scene with Kingpin and Eleanor, didn't you feel very different vibe from Wilson Fisk this time? Like very different start. Not entirely. Like the voice was there, but the cadence wasn't. There was something quite relaxed and almost not buffoonish, but slightly comedic.
Well, there was something different, certainly, and I think a lot of people are going to speculate as to whether or not, with the multiverse now opened up, officially in Spider-Man No Way Home, is this even the Kingpin that we met in Daredevil, or is this just another version of the Kingpin? Certainly his dress sense was very different, because the Kingpin in Daredevil was like just impeccably sharp, whereas this Kingpin is wearing like a Hawaiian shirt, under a suit. He's got a cane, he's got a hat. He was much more comic-y, I guess.
Yeah, and he's also based in like a completely shithole old furniture store, whatever it was. Like,
right, and he's,
rather than the sort of beautiful offices and things he's used to. But
yeah, so I think it's worth speculating. Like, okay, is this even the same character we met in Daredevil? It's hard to say exactly. Or is it just another multiversal variation?
And also, if I can jump forward to later on in the episode, he seems quasi superpowered, almost like there was.
Well,
sort of
in the comics, okay, go.
Yeah, go on.
Finish.
Go on.
Thank you, Paul.
You're welcome.
In the comics, it's been established that, okay, even though he is huge and, overweight, a lot of, that bulk is muscle.
Yeah.
So even shooting an arrow at him, and I kind of theorized that he had some sort of bulletproof armor underneath that suit. Even if he didn't, there's a chance, his muscle is so dense that it might not have phased him to be hit in the chest with an arrow. So yeah, I would say, that's his strength is like, unquestionable. Here you see him throwing Kate around like a rag doll when they do fight.
Yeah, and it's certainly no holds barred in terms of the violence towards poor little Kate there.
Right.
But I mean, we're kind of in this thing now where everything's brought together for this big celebration evening at Kate's mum's security firm. She finds out, of course, her mum is sort of deeply in debt to the Kingpin and has killed Armand. So that kind of solved for us. Did you speculate that she killed Armand? I can't remember.
I mean,
earlier in one of our episodes.
No. I mean, to be honest, like you do see her leaving the room, and so it's all there. It's all been set up for that to be the conclusion. I always kind of thought, oh, okay, so maybe she had something to do with it, but as for actually killing him, with her own hands, that isn't something that I expected.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it certainly was a surprise to me. And of course, we have Jack is no longer under investigation. I really thought Jack came into his own in this. I love what they've done with him.
I've
He's
loved Jack throughout the series, even though, it's like you kept teetering back and forth as to whether or not he would be a villain. He's just been so likable the whole time.
Yeah.
Here he really shines. He kind of gets his moment.
Yeah. The crap Omar Sharif. That's how I saw him. Just the crap Omar Sharif. And I've really enjoyed him and want to see, especially after this episode, want to see more of him in it. I obviously reading some of this older Hawkeye stuff. The swordsman was part of the kind of carny that Clint Barton was trained in, but he's not the man that teaches him archery. That's another guy who, obviously hasn't featured in this show yet. Whose name I can't remember now. But he is sort of Clint Barton's first sort of real mentor in that sort of carny environment. He's also a gambler and gets involved in sort of, gambling debt with a criminal, which is how those sort of worlds intertwine. So they have sort of there are elements there. Obviously you have things taking place on a festival night. It's Christmas, and I think this is where the kind of Die Hard comparisons really hit home. I like the idea of Clint having to rely on the LARPers.
That was really nice. That was really nice, and something I didn't expect, actually.
Yeah, and the interesting element for me is that Clint is of the Avengers, but he's not, or he is with the Avengers, but he's not of them. Do you know what I mean? Like he's always felt slightly apart, the way Natasha has. And I think because of their kind of espionage backgrounds. So in a way, he sides up with a bunch of costumed people to, tip the outcome in his favor. They were his Avengers. That's what I. That's
right.
How
I can kind of see that, which is
watching this episode. Yeah, I really like that element of it. It's the way of doing the costume team without outdoing the costume.
Right, and of course they're all, they're all street level. In their case, they're law enforcement. And firefighters, and they do sort of a version of what Clint does in a way. Street level fighting, and protection of people. But without the superheroics. But however, by the end of the episode, with the costume.
And I think there's a fine tradition of that in sort of Marvel stuff and Marvel series. We certainly saw it in Daredevil, or the Defenders, really. And I would like to see more of that kind of street level stuff involving quote unquote real people. But this was a really enjoyable episode. And of course, it gets infinitely better once Yelena shows up. And then, of course, once Yelena and Kate not team up, but
well,
together,
have their confrontation, really.
And now everyone, like myself, is begging for a Yelena Kate two-hander, like a buddy movie. I would love that. I think that sort of thing is probably just a bit beyond Marvel's remit in terms of experimentation, but I could certainly see a series in the future of Yelena, or again, I wish they'd bring back the one-shot format, the 1 or 2 hour special.
I mean, they can do whatever they want at this point. So, I certainly wouldn't ever be surprised if they did, sort of pitch something like that.
I would love to see it because I really like the rapport between those two.
Yeah. It was, I mean, even as they're punching each other in the face, you get this sort of budding friendship vibe between them.
Yeah, and it's girly yet tough. It's supportive yet sort of quite chiding in a way, and I really, really like that. And watching Kate do the parallel drop out of the window was great.
Right.
And what was interesting is you had all three characters do that drop to
Different
varying
ways.
degrees
Yeah,
of
yeah.
success.
Yeah, Clint certainly least successfully. He winds up in a tree with an owl staring at him. That was just hilarious.
And the owl thing was a lovely kind of grace note and an amusing sort of direction for the scene to go, especially later on.
Right. Yeah.
considering what
Yeah.
happens.
Which I certainly wasn't expecting. You know,
No.
the upshot of that, but that, you know, there was payoff of the owl showing up in the tree. That was hilarious.
But you really do get a sense of them being outnumbered in this episode, and how far Fisk's sort of reach goes into the thing. But also you have Maya coming to terms with the fact that Wilson isn't the man he said he was. And
yeah,
you know.
I mean, the scene between Maya and Kingpin, or the scenes rather,
yeah,
were all really I love those scenes, like particularly the conversation that they have where she kind of comes to him, and he knows that she's not really over her father's death, and she knows that he knows through the whole conversation, but they still have this this dialogue between them, that sort of that ends on this this note of them saying they love each other. I loved watching Vincent D'Onofrio in that scene, doing the sign language.
Yeah.
I thought that was brilliantly done. And it sets up a relationship, that we know exists in the comics, which is that Maya is almost a sort of adopted daughter of the Kingpins.
Yeah.
Which is one of the other things that kind of leads me to believe that, like, okay, this could be a different version of the Kingpin than the one we met in Daredevil, because obviously that relationship, didn't seem to exist. With the Wilson Fisk we knew from Daredevil. I feel like we would have known about Maya if they were as close as this version of Fisk seems to feel that they are.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, and obviously some of the stuff happening in Spider-Man sort of supports your hypothesis there, especially with the way they kind of bring in Matt Murdock, but also kind of then disregard him. Yeah, it's very. So maybe not. I would have liked to have seen them just pick it up from where we were left.
And there's still no hard proof that they haven't. But at the same time, it's like it's worth sort of speculating that maybe they didn't exactly do that.
But I really hope they're now going to bring back all of the kind of.
I would, especially with what they're rolling out, I could believe it, because, for example, we've got She-Hulk coming up. Wouldn't it be nice to see Jessica Jones pop up?
Yeah. And Matt Murdock.
Yeah, exactly. But they both could fit really well into a She-Hulk series.
Yeah, and she could quite happily be defending Danny Rand or on some corporate.
Well, I could see Danny Rand and Luke Cage popping up in Moon Knight.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I think the things they've announced, they could start, reintroducing those characters over the course of time. And
Luke Cage is the one I'm most frustrated with, because it was the second series that I enjoyed the most, and given where they left it, was the most frustrating for me not to have it come back. Like, it was so annoying, and like I'm still angry about it to this day. Luke Cage keeps getting cancelled because I don't know if you've read recently, they've just cancelled Ho Chi Anderson's Luke Cage miniseries.
What a shame!
And most of that was done and ready to go. I think the first issue was complete. The second and third issues were written and drawn, but not inked and coloured. And they've just at the last minute, I think a couple of weeks before it was due to go to press, they pulled it. I think this subject matter would have been too controversial for them. They haven't given a reason, but it's been pulled. And I think Ho Chi Anderson was really kind of, I'm taking a social media break. I'm really gutted about this. And, I'm certainly really, really kind of gutted. So everyone's got it in for Luke Cage. Like I really wish that.
Well, I'd love to see him reappear. I'd love to see them all reappear. But for now, having the Kingpin back, to some form or other, it was great. This episode. And I've really enjoyed watching Vincent D'Onofrio again. I've been rewatching Daredevil season 1 in anticipation of his appearance, and so it's been great. To see him back.
Yeah, and he does. Sorry, go
on. And I hope this isn't the last we've seen of him. And that's a question. That's a question we're left with. After that last interaction with Maya, will we see him again?
I think we will.
I think we will. I mean, they kept it. Obviously for Maya's arc in this show, I think leaving it on the note that they did makes sense, and it gives her closure as to whether or not, he will actually stay dead or, be killed or, whatever we're sort of, whatever was implied, because we never see a body. We hear a gunshot.
And that's it. It's the last we see of Maya and the last we see of Fisk. So, we don't know. And in fact, one thing that's interesting for me with Maya is that the show implies that she had some sort of intimate relationship with Kazi, which I didn't realize, because I thought they were more kind of just partners in the business of the kind of criminal side, but they seem to have been having some sort of relationship, right? I mean,
it's implied. It's at least implied.
Yeah. And I quite like that. And I quite like that it was sort of left to the very end of the show. And of course, she changes her look, sort of edges back towards more, I guess, like a softer side rather than being the harsh, kind of uptight fighter that she was. Although she does her fair share of ass kicking in this. I mean, again, I'm really curious to know if she is doing her own stunts, and because she's amazing.
Yeah,
and especially having to do it with the only the one
the prosthetic
foot,
leg,
I guess. Yeah, the prosthetic leg. Sorry, yeah. And also, I guess being deaf as well. She's that those are all obstacles to overcome, and I think she does brilliantly, and she's just been a revelation in this show, and I can't wait to see her do more
in outside her own series,
of these type of shows, and in her own series, of course, and I certainly hope she gets more roles outside of the MCU.
Oh, I'm sure. But here she really was a standout, and I look forward to seeing her again, definitely.
Yeah. And also, you have that reaffirmation of the Clint Kate relationship.
They had a lovely conversation right at the beginning of the episode where Clint actually, for the first time, says, "Yeah, you're my partner, and I'm going to stick with you until the end."
And I've got to say, the show gave me everything I wanted in terms of an ending. Like I said right from the beginning, like they've got to be. She's got to be spending Christmas with Clint, right? I mean, otherwise, what the are we doing here? Because I like sentimentality. I'll admit, I am one of the most sentimental people, certainly that I know. And if not, folks, certainly one of the most sentimental people that Liz knows.
I'll give you that.
So see if you can guess, guys. Write in with which one of us you think is the more emotionally cold one. Answers on a postcard.
I am a fuzzy warm ball of sunshine.
You have no self-awareness at all. I really liked their whole patter and banter in this.
Throughout the whole episode, it really solidifies, everything that they've been building the whole time. The partnership between them. The dynamic between them, their chemistry as actors. That paternal relationship. You know, and just their, you know, their banter, everything, you know, they really work so well. You know, I think that bit of casting in Haley Steinfeld, you know, it's just worked out just so perfectly.
Yeah.
You know, you really believe in their relationship. And you know, it's a thing with Clint, you know, we talked about this in an earlier episode that, you know, that he's always had female partners. And, you know, and he just slips back into that with Kate. And I think that brings something out of him that has been missing, because a big theme throughout this show is, you know, is his grief, you know, his over losing Natasha, who was his partner for so many years. And you know, I think that you know, as many, you know, elements went into this, you know, throughout the show, and sometimes we were saying, like, I don't know how they're going to bring this all together. Somehow they really did manage to bring all the threads together. And you know, and the conversation between Clint and Yelena, that whole scene was just, I you know, welled up, you know, I had a, you know, a couple of little tears throughout that scene, and you see him finally let go of some of that grief, and the only way that you could really get him to do it, you know, because Clint doesn't talk about his feelings, you know, was in a situation like that where, you know, where Clint is there, you know, with somebody who also loved Natasha and who's, you know, kicking his ass, you know, and that's the only way you can actually sort of bring those feelings of guilt to the surface. But, you know, it's like, it was a moment of release for him, you know, to finally confront that with someone.
Totally. Yeah. And I love the fact that she kind of gives him the chance to do that. And
that's the role she really served here, because it's like, I was always wondering, oh, okay, doesn't Yelena feel a little bit tacked on? You know, before we actually saw her in the show, I was like, well, is that just one element too much? But it was actually really integral to his character arc to have that interaction with her.
Yeah, I mean, I thought they were going to kind of introduce one more character somehow, some superpower character. I didn't know who. I didn't have any kind of suggestions or ideas about who. But you do get quite. I mean, when you think about it, you've had Yelena, you get Kingpin, you get
Maya, you get Kate, you get Jack, you get, you know, I mean, it's huge cast.
It's like,
and yet they brought all their stories to satisfying conclusions, I thought.
In terms of pacing, the best Marvel show there's been so far, I think. And I will include the Netflix Marvel shows in that. I think this has been superbly done, with each episode being exactly the right length.
And this one was longer. This was like an extra sized episode.
I really, really love this.
And as you said, then we have that, you know, sort of, well, we have another through line that came around, which is Clint's
big
sort of,
well,
oh no, that's not what it was. This is a different one. It's Clint, you know, who was like this big grump in the first couple episodes about, you know, acknowledging himself as a hero. He didn't see himself that way. And Kate sort of keeps telling him repeatedly, well, you are, and you have to look the part. And the conversation that they had that I also really loved was when Clint sort of says, like, you know, when they're building the trick arrows together, you know, he sort of gives her a get out clause, and he's like, look, you don't have to do this. It's gonna, you know, it will change your life. You will get hurt. And she tells him, no, you know, I'm ready to accept that, because, you know, when I was a kid and I saw you jump out that window, you know, it changed my life. And I saw that you don't have to be super powered to be a hero. You know, all you need is to be brave enough to go out and do it anyway, regardless the cost to yourself. And I think that is really, you know, Clint finally comes to terms with, like, okay, fine, you know, like, maybe that is what I am. And he, you know, he comes to some acceptance of that. And that's what makes him put on the costume. You know, and seeing the two of them in their new costumes fighting side by side in the middle of Rockefeller Center with the tree on the ground. And
isn't that the tree that they he sends the kids to see it?
That's the famous tree. And the ice rink, and, you know, so it's like a, you know, New York staple of Christmas. And of course they destroy it and have a giant, you know, shootout with all the bros, which was hilarious. But that's Clint coming full circle from the beginning of, you know, of really having a lot of cynicism toward, you know, being viewed as a superhero, to accepting that kind of mantle.
Yeah, and of course we've got to talk about the big reveal that
Speaking of the costumes, I've dressed appropriately.
Go on. Yes, come on.
You know,
these shows aren't about me.
Just in the spirit.
Sorry, guys, just about a conversation we had off there. I, of course, live to wind Liz up. So yeah, I just want to talk about, because I know we're in a bit of a rush tonight. We've got some things to wrap up, but just want to talk about this final reveal of the watch.
Yes. Now, Clint, as you said when you were talking about sentimentality, the idea that he brought Kate home for Christmas, he brought Lucky, who's now got a name, you know, not just Pizza Dog. Lucky is now Lucky. And they all go home to Clint's house, you know, out in the country.
Now, you called this.
And I think a lot of other people did too, you know.
You did spot this straight away, that the big reveal is that the watch does in fact belong to
Clint's wife,
who was in fact at one time or another Agent 19, who is
Mockingbird.
And
we're not going to say, and we're not necessarily going to say Bobby Morse, because that part is left left unclear. But we know that Laura Barton was once Mockingbird, and she was, you know, obviously this is a character who has been a long-running love interest of Clint's in the comics. They've been married at various points, and this was the character who I really was hoping, you know, that she would turn out to be. And so now you know, it opens up the question of, okay, is she Bobby Morse? Is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. even, you know, is that now separate because of the multiverse?
So she is, we're assuming that Laura is her real name. So that's obviously not Bobby Morse.
Well, maybe we're not assuming that. I'm not assuming that.
Okay.
You know, I'm assuming that, you know, it could totally be that she changed her name as part of a way to hide her identity, because, you know, that would make sense.
In the comics, I just want to establish the character he was married to was Bobby Morse, right? So, which I didn't find out until I'd read David Ahar's run. David Ahar, and Matt Fraction's run. So yeah, I'm interested to see where they'll take that. I mean, it would be a very different role for Linda Cardinelli to be out there kicking ass.
That would be so cool. I'd love to see that. I want that show. I want like the Barton family, like, you know, spy show.
Do you know what interests me about it in terms of physical action is what you don't often see are older women. And you know, no disrespect to Linda Cardinelli. She's, you know, I think she's kind of in a
early 40s.
You know, I think she's like my age now, nearly. And it's you don't often see older women out there beating the crap out of people. Yeah, I mean, we've seen it in things like Atomic Blonde with Charlize Theron. I would love to see her do some action.
That would be super cool. Like, I think everyone would love it. You know, now that they've made that reveal, I think people are really excited to see, you know, like Clint and, you know, Laura out there sort of having to work together somehow, you know, in a way that they haven't, you know, maybe for a while.
And it really does set up this sort of what could be a, as you say, an espionage corner of the MCU, where we have, you know, Agent 19, and we have Sharon Carter turn up again, and we have
Nick Fury turn up again,
Nick Fury, and
Coulson. You know, I love some more Coulson. You know, come on, like the multiverse has got to give me new, you know, more Coulson.
My money's on Secret Invasion. So let's, because that is a storyline that lends itself to espionage and is kind of about espionage and doubles and things like that. So there's certainly a lot of room for scope there. I know we've got to head up in a second. Is there anything else you want to say about this episode before we wrap it up?
I mean, it was just such a great sort of, you know, crescendo to the whole thing. You know, it was loads of action, loads of, you know, but all the things that have made the show great. You know, like, you know, a lot of humor contained in the action, a lot of, like, you know, just kind of great character development. You know, all the face-offs, you know, provided an emotional payoff. And you know, this has just been such a blast of a show, like just so enjoyable, so fun, so action packed. Like as you say, you know, there was that like that Die Hard vibe about this episode that fueled the whole thing. There was this great, you know, you and I were talking about on the comic show Nightwing 87, you know, which is like kind of this, you know, one long scene told in landscape form, and there was actually a lot of that in Fraction and David Aja's Hawkeye run. Used things like that, devices like that really well. And there was a scene in this that really reminded me of that, which was the scene of Yelena and Kate fighting through that office block. And you see them all side on landscape, you know, going through the building, just kicking each other through the doors, and, you know, office equipment flying. And it really made me think of the comic in that way. You know, and I felt like that was a direct sort of homage to the comic.
And of course, if you look at the end credits for this episode, David O'Hara finally gets a thank you, and along with Bendis and quite a few others, right, and then one of the final end credits blocks. So that was nice to see. Yeah. But yeah, look, I mean, it's been a great show.
Liz, after credits.
Yeah. Oh, is there an after? Was there an after credits?
Did you not stay for the after credits, Paul? Come on.
What was the after credits bit?
Okay, the after credits was a full, like,
joyous
rendition
the musical
of Rogers the Musical,
I watched this,
which has been stuck in my head ever since.
I'm ready to. I watched this after an exhausting day at the shop, and I started watching it at about 11:30, so finished at sort of midnight. Sorry, very, very tired yesterday. Yes, that was a great
way to cap it off. It just, you know, it put a big smile on my face. I already had one, but, you know, like I've been, you know, sort of having that tune, you know, playing in my head all day, and just so fun. I want them to. Now I want Rogers the Musical. I want it on Broadway. Come on, Disney, do it.
Oh God.
I tell you what, you would go.
Money, you would go to the opening of an envelope if it had the words Marvel written across it, wouldn't you?
I can't be alone in this, please, viewers.
You're probably not. You're probably not.
Weigh in.
I'm sure I'd be sitting right along next to you. Right. Unfortunately, unlike the Avengers and Captain America, we can't do this all day. So we've got to hang it up. We're hanging up our bows for this season, and of course,
for Christmas.
For Christmas. This is the final show of the year. I'm relieved we got here. Liz, I do just want to say, take a very quick couple of minutes just to say, the shows would not be possible, one, without the audience watching them, because there'd be no one to do it for. Two, especially the patrons who help support this show. So thank you to all of you for all the support you've given me and you've given the Comic Crush over the last year. It doesn't go unnoticed, and it doesn't go sort of unthanked. I hope you realise that. Thank you so much. We're looking at ways of giving you more kind of credit next year, because you know, without you the show wouldn't be possible. I do want to take a moment to thank the people who've co-hosted shows with me. It's very different from having guests on. There's a little bit more responsibility, so thank you to Nikki first of all. I hope we'll see this. Nikki is not on social media at the moment. She's off sort of retooling her website and stuff for all her artwork and music. Nikki, thank you for all the shows you did. I can't wait to next year. I hope we actually get to find the time to do more. Keith, who's got his own channel over at Home Media Minefield, which you can find, is a great channel about physical media, and he does film live streams, and he does like James Bond stuff and science fiction stuff. He does a load of great stuff, and they're all worth watching. And he's a tireless advocate for this show, and I hope I'm able to give some of that back. And he is one of my best pals. I've got to say, he's you know, one of my best friends in the world. I've known him for quite a few years now, and I absolutely love the guy, and I'm really grateful for him turning up and just being here. And I especially want to say thank you to this person with me tonight. She, as much as I give her a hard time on the shows, she is my best friend. And you know, we started off doing this in 2016. We're here 5 years later now.
Haven't killed each other yet, you know.
Not for want of trying. I think it's only the distance preventing itself. But as I said, she is my best friend, and
likewise.
I dearly miss her every day. I hope one day we'll get to kind of go and have a drink or a coffee again and be able to talk about this stuff in person. But I'm grateful for this opportunity every week to kind of chat to her about all this kind of geeky stuff. And I'm very grateful to you, Liz, for giving up the time that you've given up and giving the energy that you've given to this. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to do so, and I look forward to it every time.
It is, as I'm sure the audience will agree, a better show for having you on. So, as are all the shows for all the hosts. Also, quickly, thank you to Owen Michael Johnson, who came on for the very last shows, the Radio Times ones. I hope to have him on more next year. But Liz, you know, what can I say? Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me, and I always enjoy doing these. You know, I hope that we get to do as many, if not more, in 2022. And I would also love if we could in 2022 at some point get to do one together live in person.
You never know. You never know. But I wish you all the best for Christmas and the New Year. I hope that you get to have a bit of a break and a good time with your family and rest up and sit and open all the comics that no doubt people will be buying you. And remember, if you want to if you want to support Liz's stuff, at LizCJordan.com is her website. You can go and check that out. Her writing is marvelous, as I was talking about on the last show. I'm not going to wax too rhapsodic about it now because, quite frankly, she's had enough compliments for the evening.
It's good fuel, you know.
Fueling the monstrous ego that only I see in the behind the scenes material that I'll never show you. Liz, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to you.
Merry Christmas.
I hope you enjoy whatever's coming your way in 2022. Have a good Christmas, guys. You have a good Christmas out there. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Check out the Patreon and do all that stuff because it helps us keep going. It is like there is a direct correlation between what you do and what we do. So, you know, let us know what you'd like to see in 2022 from the Comic Crush. Merry Christmas to you all and a Happy New Year. And see you next